The Central Unified School District Board of Trustees regular and annual organizational meeting of December 14th, 2021 is called to order at 6:03. Please let the record reflect that all board members are in attendance except for Trustee Mailing and Trustee Paul. Our next item is adoption of the agenda. I'd like to move to amend the agenda to move consent agenda item L2, adopt resolution number 2122-26, resolution continuing Board of Trustees authority to hold virtual meetings pursuant to AB 361, to follow after adoption of the agenda and to occur before comments from the public on the closed session items. Is there a second? Thank you. I have a second by Trustee Cervantes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda will be the adoption of resolution number 2122-26, resolution continuing Board of Trustees authority to hold virtual meetings pursuant to AB 361. This item allows the board to hold virtual meetings in the event that they are needed and to allow any Board of Trustee to appear remotely during our board meetings. Are there any questions related to this item? Do we have any comments from the public? If we can allow 30 seconds to pass, since we did move this item from our consent agenda items to happen now. So if there are any members of the public who wish to provide a comment related to the adoption of this resolution related to AB 361, please call now. The number to dial is 559-276-3150.
"30 seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time."
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to a vote. Actually, I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Brooks. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please let the record reflect that we do have Trustee Mailing in attendance. He is appearing telephonically. As a result of his telephonic appearance, all votes during today's meeting will happen by roll call vote. And we do have Trustee Paul, who is also present at this time. Next, we will take any comments from the public related to our closed session items. Once again, to our members of the public, if you are in person or you are viewing us remotely, if you wish to provide a comment related to any item currently on the agenda under closed session, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. If we can once again allow 30 seconds to pass before we move to our closed session.
"30 seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time."
Thank you. Hearing no comments, we will adjourn to closed session and return to open session at 7 p.m. or as soon as we conclude our closed session. Thank you. The Central Unified School District Board of Trustees reconvenes to open session. Before we move on with our agenda items, I do want to turn over the mic to our acting Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. This evening, we would like to start by taking a moment of silence for one of our beloved nurses who lost her battle with cancer recently. Dolores Evaristo was a Central Unified employee for 20 years, serving Steinbeck Elementary and many other schools. Many of us who knew her would describe her as caring, a nurturing woman with a passion for service for others. Her work went above and beyond the job itself and to help those in need. So she is, as you can imagine, going to be deeply missed. And if we can, just take a moment of silence before we get the meeting started to respect her wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Items to report from our closed session. The certificated personnel report was approved unanimously. A motion by Trustee Cervantes, a second by Trustee Brooks. The classified personnel report was also supported unanimously. A motion by Trustee Cervantes, a second by Trustee Chan. And with that, we'll move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. Vice President Solis.
Could everyone please stand and face the flag? Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if I can just remind everyone on the mics, our trustees, and any speakers that we have to make sure that they are speaking into the mic as loudly as they can so everyone can hear. Next, we'll move on to our presentations. School activities presentations. We have ASB President Haynes with us today from Justin Garza High School.
Good evening, board members, Acting Superintendent Davis, and the Central Community. My name is Perrin Haynes, and I'm the Associated Student Body President of Justin Garza High School. I am proud of what our school has accomplished in its first semester and would like to share some of our milestones. November was Sick Awareness Month, and we partnered with the Jakara movement to celebrate and educate our community on the Sikh culture. I want to personally thank Trustee Chan for taking the time to visit our school and speak with our students. On November 13th, Justin Garza High School connected once again with Beautify Fresno to clean up our community. We had over 60 volunteers, including students, staff, and parents, and together we picked up 25 bags of trash. Community service plays an integral part of Justin Garza High School and what it means to be a guardian, and we plan on having many community service events throughout the year. Our student leadership team planned an incredible winter formal on December 4th where the theme was Enchanted Masquerade. This was just a monumental event for not just myself, for the entire Associated Student Body, because this was the first ever dance held at Justin Garza High School and was also the first ever high school dance for many of our students. Also, our music and theater departments have been hard at work this semester. 2 of our band students were the first ever guardians to audition and be selected for the Fresno Madera Honor Band. Mr. Bridges and his theater students are preparing for an upcoming performance called In the Heights, and we love to invite the Central community to come out and support the cast in March. Each month, our school hosts a Guardian of the Month luncheon where individuals who have demonstrated our stand principles are invited to a pizza party. What's unique about our luncheon is that the students also vote for one staff member who they feel they has really contributed to the campus culture. Past winners include Mr. Bridges and Mr. Butler. Our winter sports team have been a success this season in soccer, wrestling, and basketball. Boys soccer placed first in the Clovis East JV tournament. Girls soccer has placed first in 2 tournaments already, and boys basketball placed first in this past weekend's Clovis North tournament. And our cheer team placed first in the CIF Invitational. The Guardians are currently studying and preparing to take their first ever finals at Justin Garza High School later this week. On behalf of the Justin Garza High School student leadership team and the associated student body, I would like to thank you all for your time and wish you and our Central community a safe and happy holiday season.
Thank you, President Hayes, for your report and for joining us here tonight. Next, we move on to our Employee Association highlights. First, we will hear from Central Unified Teachers Association. Do we have?
Yes, we have Judy Martinez,
Okay,
and we will get her through shortly.
thank you.
Hi, Judy, you're on with the board. Make sure to turn your listening device down so we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you, President Creo. Good evening, board members and superintendents. I'm going to keep things brief as I see we have quite a long agenda. I wanted to bring a couple of items to your attention. We are still in negotiations for our 2020-2021 and our current year. Our last meeting with the district was on Friday, December 10th. We are making progress, but it is slow going. As you know, CUDA and the district have an agreed upon MOU for independent study compensation. We are currently working with the district to get many of our educators paid for all of the extra work they had to prepare for our students who are in short-term and or long-term independent study. In addition, many of these teachers didn't get paid. In addition, some teachers didn't receive any of their stipends. They should have been paid their stipends on December 10th. And due to some errors, not theirs, they were not paid. These educators submitted their hours and paperwork by the due date. These teachers were then told that they wanted to be compensated, they should submit a letter to their site admin or Mr. McLean describing their hardship. When I met with the district today, I asked that these educators be paid by the end of the week. I also requested that they not be asked to submit an email to Mr. McLean explaining their hardship in order to receive compensation. To make them wait for payment owed because of an error that was beyond their control is wrong. To make them write a letter to explain why they need compensation is wrong. I will continue to keep you, board members, posted on this. As I said, I did ask respectfully that they be paid by this Friday. As you know, we will all be on our winter break for 3 weeks. As such, CUDA wants to wish each and every one of you the happiest of holidays with your family and friends. And I thank you for your time, as always. Good evening.
Thank you, President Martinez. We do not have a report or a representative from the California School Employees Association tonight. With that, we will move on to our Superintendent Board Communications, and then we will take comments from the public. So if there are any members of the public who wish to provide a comment during comments from the public on any item not currently on the agenda, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. Acting Superintendent.
Thank you. Last week, we began holding our community redistricting meetings on Zoom, and we've already received some community input, but we encourage more of our community to participate. We have another session this week on Thursday at 6 p.m. on Zoom. All of the information for the redistricting, as well as access to work with the tools that are available on the website, are available at our Central Unified website under Public Information. We have Holiday Joy food drive distribution this Saturday at Central East High School. We've been doing for 12 years the support for our Central families. As of right now, we have an anticipation of more than 2,800 people who will benefit from the food drive. And so I want to thank all of our donors and schools that have been generously providing support, resources, and their time on this upcoming Saturday. And you are welcome to join us as well out at Central East Campus. And then lastly, I would like to wish everybody a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. Hopefully you can take time with your families and our staff that's here as well, our administrators that are in the audience. Hope everybody takes a chance to catch their breath and just recharge over the holiday with their family and friends. And as a reminder, schools will be on winter break from following this Friday, December 20th, and through Monday, January 7th, when we reopen.
Thank you. Is there any board member wishing to speak at this time? I do just have a couple updates. The committee to study school names and mascots did meet last week on Tuesday, December 7th. We did have 3 board members present during that attendance. Trustee Brooks, Trustee Solis, and I were present. I think we had a very successful meeting, but that's my personal opinion. We had the majority of the committee members present. There was great discussion, so I was really excited and happy to see what was happening. We have not set the meeting for the second meeting, which will happen in January, but we will report that back to the board and to the community once that is scheduled. The Foundation for Central Schools did not have a meeting in December, either due to conflicts, and will meet again in January. And we do have Holiday Joy, so if any of you will be attending this Saturday, I look forward to seeing you. If not, also have a happy holidays. And with that, if there's no other board member who wishes to provide any comment, we'll move on to our comments from the public. Do we have any members from the public who wish to provide a comment at this time? And this is related to any item not currently on the agenda. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. If you are in person, please come forward now. If you are telephonically, please dial 559-276-3150. Clerk Brooks, do we have any members wishing to provide comment at this time?
Yes, we have Ken McEwen.
Make sure you push the push button. Thank you.
Thank you, Board, for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Kenneth McEwen. I graduated from Biola Pershing Elementary School from 8th grade, and I've graduated from Central High School in 1975. My mom was a teacher at Central High School from the 1970s to the 1990s, where she got me to start substituting, and I substituted for Central Unified 2.5 years, which led me to get my credential in mathematics, and I retired from teaching in June of 2020, last year. I'm here to address the board about the vaccines. Being a math teacher, being a numbers person, I look at the numbers of what's been reported. I followed this statistically for the first 8-9 months of the COVID outbreak, but specifically as far as the vaccines in children. I stopped following real closely the numbers that were given, but about a month ago, I heard somebody say that there was only a little over 500 child deaths of kids with COVID. And I thought that's got to be wrong. So I looked into it and I found out, no, it was not. That was a very correct number. Then I started to look into it. How many of those kids just died from COVID? At first, I started to realize that the number was much less than 90%. As I looked into it more, it's closer to 99% did not die, of those students did not die from COVID. The number of student deaths, of minors' deaths in the United States from COVID is much less than 1%. I just heard just in the past week, a German survey of COVID, of minors with COVID, after the first 16 months of the epidemic, not one death in Germany for minors had occurred from COVID. Doesn't mean that they didn't die with COVID, but I'm talking about died from COVID. Why we want to give our kids a vaccine for something that is not going to hurt them, I don't understand. And I wish you would consider educating your public and relaying this information. To me, it's vital. I know you consider every one of the kids in your kids just like I considered every one of my students my students. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Kardinoff.
Hello. Okay, so check this out. Look, Hitler inspired Polk. Hitler used Manifest Destiny as a template for the Holocaust. Many may not know that. Manifest Destiny has destroyed people of color for many generations, families all across the United States. Some of you may not know that either. These are objectively true facts. I have a problem with people being on the board and people being on the naming committee who have voted in support of others that were part of tearing down the poster that the advanced student put up that was objectively true. And I don't think Luciana Carrillo should be the president. I don't think Solis, you belong up there. You know, I couldn't catch everybody at that meeting, but I was very disappointed at the renaming committee because it sets a terrible precedence when an advanced child does a project and it's objectively true and we don't support them and we don't do our part in educating the people. Sellers and Meza, they should not be on that renaming committee already. To me, it's a farce. It's equivalent to how the tobacco companies, they go and they fund these research projects only to say that, oh, there's no connection between cancer and the cigarettes. I think each of you really needs to look at what you're supposed to be doing, watching out for the best interests of the people in the community.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any other speakers? Do we have any callers via the telephone?
Yes, we have Gabriel Suarez along with his two sons, Phoenix and Malachi.
Are they being transferred or are they already on the line?
They're being transferred.
Okay, thank you.
Suarez family, you're on with the board. Make sure to turn down your listening device so that we can hear you. Madam President, 2 minutes? And you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
It's Suarez. I want to talk about 3 issues. The last time I called in, Yesenia Carrillo wouldn't let me talk after they didn't answer my call. Next, there are no students on the naming committee, which should include my brother Malachi, because the committee was formed because of his project. There were supposed to be students, and not having any is unreasonable. Third, you let Becca Meza and Gina Sellers on the committee. They are 2 awful parents that bullied my brother and tore his poster down. They're basically in charge of my brother's project, which is not okay. Another thing is you let Meza and Sellers be the chair and vice chairs of the committee, which is awful. My brother is trying to do what is right, and you are treating him like garbage, but you treat bullies like heroes. The true hero is my brother. Also, don't call me Suarez. My name is Malachi Suarez, and hey, I want my minute. Sorry.
Go ahead.
My name is Malachi Suarez, and my gay community service project is to change the name of my school. Polk and the pioneers committed genocide to steal land from people like me. Manifest Destiny says that European Americans are more deserving than people like me, and celebrating that racist message makes me feel disgusted and unwelcome. Gina Sellers and Monica Meza tore my poster down at school, and now they are on the renaming committee that was formed because of my project. However, my teacher and principal tried to get me in trouble for trying to share my GATE project with my GATE class. But nothing was done about these parents bullying me. Central Unified is sending a clear message. If you are a parent who hates anti-racist messages from students, all you have to do is come onto campus, commit a crime, and the district will do all it can to shut that student's message down. If you are a student with a positive message, you will get in more trouble for sharing your message than the parents who come onto campus to commit crimes to bully you. You took my project away from me to give to bully parents. Shame on you.
My name is Gabriel Suarez, and I want to claim my 2 minutes.
Go
Can
ahead.
you restart my clock?
Go
I'm
ahead.
Gabriel Suarez. Central Unified has demonstrated repeatedly that it supports bullying to prevent students from doing what is right. My son was not allowed to share his educational GATE project with his class because Gina Sellers and Monica Meza were so against his objective historical truth that they took it upon themselves to tear down his approved poster at school, which is a misdemeanor and bordering a hate crime. In support of these bullies, Central denied him his GATE education and freedom of speech, thanks to Ketty Davis, who gave no justifiable reason to deny him that chance. Recently, it seems the board voted to allow Monica Meza and Gina Sellers to be on the renaming committee after doing nothing to address their crime. If any board members were against this, their public silence is deafening. Solis, Carrillo, and Brooks voted for Meza to be the chair of the committee, knowing that she bullied a 9-year-old student for doing his GATE project. Sean Brooks, you knew that too when you chose Meza to represent your area. Shame on you. Now this committee is run by Meza and Sellers. The committee exists because Carrillo and Solis refused to vote on a name change without forming a committee. First, but unreasonable people who bully children are in charge now. It's a sham, just like Carrillo, Solis, and Brooks. Their actions scream that they'd rather hide behind a committee and bullies than state on record where they really stand. They stand behind white supremacy. The board and district admin have shown they have no integrity and are incapable of doing what is right. You're all morally corrupt because you took the project away from my son to give it to adults who bullied him for trying to make a positive change for his community. Shows how much you hate anti-racist messages. Fresno Unified was capable of changing a mascot and a school name in less time than it took for you to hear all this information and have one committee meeting. There is no justifiable reason to have a school named after Polk. Resistance to change is not a reason. Shame on you for trying to indoctrinate your children with white supremacist messages by celebrating Polk and the pioneers who committed genocide against people like us to steal land.
Thank you for your comments.
We have another comment, Reza Negamanish, a community member, and they're being sent over right now.
Thank you.
Hi, Reza, you're on with the board now. Make sure to turn down your listening device so that we can hear you loud and clear. You have 2 minutes, and your time starts now.
Greetings, my name is Reza Nikomanish. I appreciate your time. I am calling in regards to the issue of the board, the committee which was established to look at the names of schools and buildings in Central Unified and to figure which names need to be changed because of sensitivities. This issue began with Polk Elementary, and since the beginning, I don't know what word to think of other than rigged. I think the process has been shifty, to say the least. I am very disheartened in the fact that a committee or a board was put together where the chair of such committee is one of the people most antithetical to the question at hand, and I don't understand how you can have an open or transparent process when decisions like that are made. That is like disheartening, it's disenfranchising, and it allows us as a public to see that if the game is not rigged, it's a sham, and that's the best that I have to understand the process. I appreciate and I yield the rest of my time.
We have no other comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, we'll move on to our next agenda item, organizational items, and I will turn the agenda over to our Acting Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to elect President of the Board of Trustees, and so I would like to start by calling for nominations for President of the Board.
Nominate Trustee Solis.
First off, Mr. Solis, do you accept the nomination? Okay. And then Mr. Cervantes, you're the second for that. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Trustee Carrillo.
Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Is there a second for?
I'd like to nominate.
All right, Mr. Mailing, can you repeat your statement?
I'd like to nominate Trustee Carrillo.
Okay, we have a nomination on the floor by Mr. Chan. She's accepted it. Would you like to second that? Would you like to second that nomination?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. So we have nomination for Trustee Solis with a nomination by Sean Brooks, accepted, and second by Trustee Cervantes. Nomination for Trustee Carrillo by Trustee Chan, second by Trustee Mailing. This will require a roll call vote in which you can identify which of the two individuals that you would nominate. We'll begin with Trustee Brooks.
Trustee Richard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Carrillo.
Trustee Carrillo.
Trustee Cervantes. Sorry, I didn't open it up for comments. We are in the vote at this point.
Trustee Solis.
Thank you. Trustee Chan.
Trustee Carrillo.
Trustee Mailing.
Trustee Carrillo.
Trustee Paul.
Trustee Solis.
Trustee Solis.
Trustee Solis.
With a vote of 4 for Trustee Solis, 3 for Trustee Carrillo, the board president nominated will be Trustee Solis. So if we can just take a couple of minutes to adjust, and then we'll pick up the agenda in just a moment.
Moving on to item 2, nominations for vice president.
I move to nominate Trustee Chan.
Trustees Chan, nominated by Trustee Carrillo, seconded by Trustee Cervantes. Any other nominations? Are we required to have a roll call vote even though there's no, okay,
Yes,
No
because we have a
opposition?
telephonic appearance.
okay. Do you accept the nomination, Mr. Chan?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more nominations for Vice President? Hearing none, do we have a motion to proceed?
Yes, I move to approve Trustee Chan as the Vice President of the Board of Trustees.
All right, is there a second? I second it. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, moving it for a roll call vote. Ms. Davis?
Anita, do you have it? Okay.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes. Yes. Trustee Chan,
Yes.
Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion is carried. Moving to item 3, electing the clerk of the board. I'm accepting nominations are open. Any nominations? Okay, we have a motion for Ms. Brooks. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Accepting the second by Mr. Paul. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Closing the nominations. Any discussions on motion to approve? Hearing none. Going for a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes. Yes. Trustee Chan,
Yes.
Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. All right, moving on to, the motion is carried. We're moving on to item 4, appoint superintendent as secretary to the Board of Trustees.
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All righty. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, taking a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes. Yes. Trustee Chan,
Yes.
Trustee Mailing. Yes. Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion is approved. Moving on to item 5, establish regular board meetings, days and places, and the designated reserved dates.
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? A second. We have a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, taking a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes. Yes. Trustee Chan,
Yes.
Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion passes. Item 6, appoint representative and alternate voting representatives to participate in the elected person to the Fresno County Committee on School Districts Organization in fall of 2021. Is there any nominations are open for the representatives?
So I believe the item states that Trustee Mailing and Trustee Chan are currently the serving members, I'll move to nominate both of them if they're still willing to participate.
Do you accept the nominations?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, both of them accept the nominations. Are there any other nominations? Oh, well, first of all, we need a second. Thank you, Mr. Cervantes. Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Chan?
Yes.
Trustee Mailing?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
President Solis?
Yes. The item passes. Moving to item 7, elect board member to represent the district on the executive board for the Fresno County Trustee Associations. Nominations are open.
Do we know? Thank you. I'll second that nomination. I actually had a question. Trustee Brooks, did you ever attend any of the meetings?
I just barely met up after the last seminar. I didn't even know about it when they
Okay. This is the committee. I actually was going to ask for clarification on the committee.
I know what it is now.
Can you tell us what it is?
Well, a little bit I did learn. It's just where they all get together, all the trustees, and plan events through the year and talk about different trustees.
Thank you.
So we have a nomination, I believe a second, Mr. Cervantes, for Ms. Creel.
He made the nomination and I second.
We have
The
a
nomination.
second and a motion. Any more nominations? Closing nominations. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, going to a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes? Trustee Chan?
Yes.
Trustee Mailing?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
President Solis?
Yes. The motion passes. Moving to item 8, approve authorized signature and mailing permit. Mr. McLean.
Thank you, President Solis. This is an annual item that we bring forward to the board for renewal of the authorized signers for the district and the mailing permit in accordance with Ed Code and at the request of the County Superintendent of Schools. So we're asking the board to approve the authorized signature permit and mailing permit that are attached.
Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Ms. Creel. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Mr. Paul. Do we need to bring it for public comment?
We should be taking public comment,
Okay.
yes.
We'll give it a few minutes for public comment. If you're interested in making a public comment, please call in to 276-3150. Can you please notify me if we have any public comments?
I will put 30 seconds on the clock.
Thank you.
Thirty seconds have passed and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Open up the motion for discussion from the board. Hearing no discussion, calling the item for a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes? Trustee Chan?
Yes.
Trustee Mailing?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
President Solis?
Yes. The item passes. Moving on to Section L, Consent Agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda consisting of item 1 and items 3 through 9.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Calling it for a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes? Trustee Chan?
Yes.
Trustee Mailing? Trustee Paul?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to action items. M1, accept gifts to the district. Mr. McLean.
Thank you. We have one gift to report tonight, and that is for McKinley Elementary School, receiving a donation of holiday gifts from Sonatrol, which is one of our local vendors, for 28 TKK students at McKinley and candy canes for the other 2 kindergarten classes at the school, to be delivered by Santa and valued at $1,500. And we're recommending that the board accept this gift to the district.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Discussion on the item.
President Solis, if I can just remind you, if you want to remind the public if they want to provide any comment, you should take that before we engage in any discussion by the board.
Thank you. If you're wanting to make a public comment, please call into 276-3150. We'll give you a few minutes to call in. Start the clock.
30 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
Thirty seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you very much. Now I'll open up discussion for the board. Hearing no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes? Trustee Chan?
Yes.
Trustee Mailing?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes. The motion carries. Moving on to item 3, approve the 2021-2022 first interim report. Ms. Balderas.
President Solis, I may have confused you. Our next item would be action item 2, discuss and approve agenda to conduct, or agency to conduct superintendent search.
Yes, thank you. Item 2, discuss and approve agency to conduct superintendent search. Ms. Carrillo.
If the board may recall, we solicited bids, requests for proposals from agencies, including evaluating having the Central Unified School District Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources conduct the search internally. We delegated the task of evaluating the potential agencies, including Central Unified, to a committee of 3, and I believe that the committee had an opportunity to review. And so if there is one member or how you guys have designated to have the discussion, I'd like to turn over to you all to present the item, and if you have a recommendation at this time, the board will hear the recommendation and then take any public comment, and then we can move to a vote. If there is no recommendation by the committee at this time, we can have this item returned to our next January board meeting. Thank you.
President Solis may report out the findings of our search committee.
Yes.
So, to the community, the general public, and esteemed trustee members, and as well as administrations. So, Trustee Paul, President Solis, and myself had an opportunity last week to listen to presentations and had a chance to interview at least five or six of the different groups that submitted their applications that presented to us earlier this year. We had an opportunity to meet the people that were going to be actually conducting the superintendent search, ask them questions, as well as understand a little bit sort of their pricing. Our recommendation upon conversation was as follows. I'm trying to see actually the names of the different groups. Would you? Yeah. Do you have that on you? I would recall it. I just want to see the name of the first one. Yeah. Perfect. So, in terms of when we evaluated all the companies, the ones that Trustee Paul, President Solis, and myself felt most felt could do the best job was McPherson and Jacobson, with the caveat that in their presentation they said that they could price match with comparable services to the other companies. And so we were going to ask staff to speak with them to see if that they would basically be comparable to the other companies in terms of the services rendered. If they were so willing, that would be our first choice. If not, Leadership Associates was our second choice. And I promised President Solis that I would also make sure to note that we did have an opportunity to interview our internal staff itself to see what was the capabilities of our own staff in doing such a job. By far, that was the cheapest price, but still, after talking to Mr. Collegian and evaluating the other groups, our recommendation was still as follows. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carrillo, do you have anything else to add?
I was going to make a recommendation as to the next action, but if you have a recommendation.
No, go ahead.
I would recommend then that if there is consensus from the rest of the board to the selection and the recommendation of the committee of the first choice and the second choice, that if an agreement can be reached with the first, then it returns back the agreement with the second choice for approval at the next January meeting.
Is there consensus of the board? Everyone's in agreement?
I do. I agree. I don't know, Trustee Mailing? And I'm only putting you on the spot since you're telephonically. Do you have any objection to the recommendations?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, then we're giving direction to the board to contact the two vendors. Giving direction to the staff. Correct? All right.
Correct.
Now moving on to item 3. Approve the 2021-2022 first interim report. Ms. Balderas.
Good evening, Board. Tonight I bring the first interim report. These are financial activities and changes from that was from the adopted budget through October 31st. I will first do the presentation and then ask for any questions and then ask for the board's approvals. In order to estimate what our potential revenue is for our LCFF, we estimate what our seabeds are. They are not certified. They should be certified in the next few days. So we used an estimated number, which was 15,724 of enrollments. And then our ADA is usually approximately about 95% of our enrollment, which comes out to 14,938. This slide just kind of shows the comparison. I mean, shows the how we get funded. Of course, we get funded based on a grade span. Then on top of that, we get an adjustment for TK3 and 912. And then our supplemental concentrated, which is based on our duplicated pupils. And that is how our total per ADA by grade level is determined. As you can see there, it ranges from 11,000 per student to 12,000. This will show you the breakdown of our LCFF. So our base grant comes out to about 136.5 million, with supplemental coming in at 31.9 million. Our add-on is for transportation. That's always the set number, is the 1.8 or 1.9 million, for a total of $170.2 million of LCFF revenue. Our total, even though LCFF represents the majority of our revenue, we do also have our federal revenue, which is about 79.7 million. We have other state at 20.5 and local and other revenue at 11.5 million, for a total estimated revenue this year of 280.5 million. This also includes our one-time funds. As you can see, our federal revenue is at 79.7 million. That's where majority of our COVID funds are coming from. Our revenue is estimated to increase by 83.9 million from adopted. And here, I'm not going to go through reading every detail, but the majority of our increases is the federal, which is the COVID funds, the one-time monies that we received. A lot of it also has to do with carryover that is not budgeted for at adopted, because we don't know how much our carryover will be. We assume we're going to spend it all, but we know we don't always spend it all. So usually at first interim, you'll see these large increases from one budget to the next, and that is mainly due for the carryover and for the one-time monies that we received. Our general fund expenditures are estimated at $284.5 million, with salaries and benefits coming in at 62% of the total expenditures. And the reason being so low, and usually it's around 80, and most of it is because of the COVID funds, which are budgeted for supplies, materials. Of course, we are doing additional help and extra work, which would be in salaries, but because of the large number of one-time monies coming in, it is actually booked under your books and supplies at this time. This slide just kind of shows the breakdown between restricted resources and unrestricted funds that we have for expenditures. I just wanted to show you that $150.4 million is unrestricted, and as you can see, salary and benefits make up most of that expenditure. And then the restrict is 133.8 million, and the majority is your books and supplies, which account for all the one-time monies that we're getting. If we're not known exactly how we're spending it, it's not been yet moved, we do put it into materials. It's just like a holding. Our expenditures increased $88 million from our adopted. Again, this has to do with our carryover monies that are being brought in for restricted funds. We do balance our revenues to expenditures, so as we add money to restricted monies, we are going to, of course, add the expenditures. This also has to do, the majority of the increases have to do with the one-time monies that we are receiving. Here are the multi-year assumptions that were used in my first interim report. The main thing really to point out here, I would think, is just the enrollments. As you can see, we do have a slight, we are increasing, we decreased from last year. These are based on our demographic studies, which were all estimates. As you also can see, there is a COLA that is given to us by the Department of Finance that is embedded in here. Additional one-time costs for Justin Garza is also embedded in here, so that way you can see what it's costing, and then we take it back out. That's why you'll see the fluctuation in expenditures. And of course, our STRS and PERS rates, how they increase. So based on those assumptions, I summarized everything into our total revenues, what we expected for the year, our expenditures, and then our ending fund balance. So after the third year, our percent of reserves is at 16.76, but we are still showing deficit spending each year. This is just a slide to show you all the other funds, the beginning balances, the estimated revenue, estimated expenditures, and what we the estimated ending fund balances for each different types of funds that we have out there. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions, and
Alrighty. I think I'll take the board questions first. The public, if you want to call in, you can call in at 276-3150. That's 276-3150. And can you hold those calls just for a little bit? Open it up for questions from the board.
I have a few comments related to the budget, but I don't have questions regarding the report provided. So if there is any other trustee that has questions about the actual financial numbers, I'd like to wait until after that.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the deferred maintenance fund. How do we come to that calculation? And I feel like that's, I don't know, but my assumption is I feel like there's not enough.
so we used to get money for the deferred maintenance. It used to be we would get a percentage from the state, and then we would match that. That has gone away when we went on Tier 3, when most of the categoricals went away. So what the district does, we estimate how much the deferred maintenance fund will be needing for the out years, and that money actually comes from the LCFF sources.
Category?
And it will get transferred into the deferred maintenance based on projected buildings or what costs we need. And sometimes that changes. I believe we started at, adopted at 977,000, and that we're at 1.4 based on the needs of the district. So we had to increase that transfer into the deferred maintenance for projects that they need.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Creel? Oh, Mr. Singh?
Mrs. Valadares, can you share, or potentially somebody else on staff, why did we see such a large decrease in unduplicated students this year?
Can I answer that? Yeah, that number will go up and down from year to year, and actually the state funds us on a 3-year average, but we did have a decrease this year, and part of that challenge is when we provide surveys to our parents to get those surveys collected in a COVID environment, and we were given more time last year than we were given this time from the state.
And just as a follow-up with that, Mr. McLean, but I mean, that's quite substantial. I mean, 888 when we're a district of about 15, 16,000. I mean, we're pushing almost 1,000 students. I mean, that's yeah, I mean, that's a big cause of at least question for me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I've been struggling. We hear as a board about the budget on a quarterly basis. And my concern is always related to, and I appreciate all the work that goes into preparing these budgets, and I know that there are restraints in how many gets allocated. But if there is support from the board, what I like to see moving forward is some identification of how we are allocating specific resources for a marginalized community. So we receive specific funding for our foster youth. We know based on the data that we're collecting internally and that is posted on the dashboard that our students are Black and brown, and students with disabilities, who then also include Black and brown students, are just lagging significantly. We talk about how the majority of our funds, over 80%, and although this includes 67%, I believe, goes to salaries. But I would like to see whether there's an opportunity to highlight where we're allocating specific funds and what programs are being supported that are going to help bridge the gap and help with the recovery loss. So what I'm asking would be more of a relationship and collaboration between our student services and our finance, so that in addition to this presentation, again, if there's consensus from the board, because this will require a lot more work, I acknowledge that, but I think it's work that we need to start working towards. We know there are students that are failing. We know that this is part of an institutional issue. This has nothing to do with our teachers, our staff, or administration. So I want to make that very clear, because I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I'm communicating. But I do understand, and I feel personally as a trustee, that we need to do more. We've had conversations. Trustee Cervantes, maybe 6 months ago, made a motion to allocate over $8 million. $8 million, which was supported by the board. So I just want us to be more direct and highlighting where we have those gaps and where we're allocating some of those funds. And I'm not just talking about the salaries. I'm talking specifically about programs. And then that would better equip our board to make decisions whether we need to allocate more money towards that. We have significant funds from COVID that we're storing in our materials. Perhaps those should be allocated specifically to fund certain programs for our students with disabilities, for our students with other learning disabilities, or Black and brown students, our foster youth. And again, I highlight those students because statistically, they're the ones that are falling behind. I am not saying that the rest of our students do not deserve our attention or our money. They do. But if we want to see change, especially as this pandemic continues to exist, we're gonna have to be more proactive and more intentional and acknowledge, without any fear or concern that we're going to be criticized, that we have to make significant changes. And that to me means being more clear as to where we're funding those programs and how much more money needs to be allocated. And I just, maybe I'm the only one that's thinking this, I don't know, but that's why I wanted to bring this up to the board to start that conversation, so that we can all work together and start allocating and providing more information, because I'm well aware that our administration, that our staff, that our teachers are doing a lot of work towards that already, but we get it in pieces, and so it's really hard to then put it all together. There are some of us who will take the time to do that, but I would just like to see that highlighted in our budget. And again, if we need to allocate more funds to those specific programs, or start looking at what other programs we can provide for those students, then I want to make sure that we're actively doing that.
Hear, hear, well said.
So I guess my question would be to Ms. Davis. Do you picture in your mind a report that you could add on to the budget report that would address her concerns?
I believe we can take the numbers and Annette Grigsby from our in-services team. So short answer, yes, but I think that it'll take some massaging of bringing it in and then finding out answers to questions that then come when we present that new information to you. Our Ed Services team works closely with Ms. Balderas to fill out all of these reports. To start, we could take the unduplicated count number that you see in this report and parse it out to show you where the program that's attached or some of the activities attached to that, if I'm understanding what you're saying, could add in some commentary to those numbers and give a linkage at this point in time that is different and usually comes when it's the LCAP. That's the next time you see budget and program married is LCAP. And so if I hear what you're saying is moving forward, we would also embed it in reports like this so you can see those connections.
If I may, but even the LCAP doesn't designate the specific funding by those subgroups, does it? Am I missing it? Okay, I'll go back and look at that.
But that's good feedback for us. We need to call that out and highlight it more. So the LCAP is cumbersome. We understand that part of how the template by the state is made. That information, it's on us to bring it more clearly to you so you can see those things and ask the questions that you have and build confidence in the activities that are being done or being adjusted as we get more information.
All right, thank you. Now I'll go ahead and open it up for a public statement. Do we have any calls holding?
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Okay, seeing none holding, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the report as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks?
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo?
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Chan? Trustee Mailing?
Yes. Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
President Solis?
Yes. All righty, the motion passes. Moving on to item 4, approving extending ACE Behavior Supportive Staff Services Agreement. Mr. Paulhai?
As he's coming up, I'd like to introduce our Director for Special Education, Mr. Paliugi, who will address the next 2 items for us.
Good evening, trustees. The item before you is an extension of an existing contract for ACE's Behavior Support Staffing Services. We are asking the board and recommending that the board approve this extension for the duration of the school year. We contract with ACES. ACES provides 3 behavioral intervention specialists that we utilize throughout the district for all of our schools. Questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Ms. Krill.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by behavioral support services?
Absolutely. The behavior intervention specialists have a training in something called applied behavior analysis. It's a evidence-based program. It's been around for years. It's highly effective. It's highly effective not just with students that live with disabling conditions. It's highly effective with students that have just dysregulated behavior, our general educated students, students in TK, kinder. Especially coming off of this pandemic, we are seeing a dramatic increase in behaviors and supports required to keep our kids in the classroom, to keep our kids from getting suspended. It has a dramatic impact.
And does this provide any support services, or how does it work directly with our teachers? So I know when we talk about suspensions and detention and expulsions, and we bring the subject of discipline, our teachers are always concerned and voice that we require so much of them. to have to deal with the discipline aspect. Can you tell us a little bit about if this offers any support or it takes away that responsibility, or how they work with our teachers in the classroom?
No, great question, Ms. Carrillo. Yes, the design of this program it works in conjunction with our district BCBA psychologist. The idea is that when teachers and our students need support, we address it now. When we find out that we have a simple referral, the idea is that these aides are mobile. They may come to a school site for a student in need. They'll partner with the teacher. If there are other instructional assistants in there, they'll partner with our classified staff. They'll train them the behavioral techniques that they employ with the student, with the idea that in a certain amount of time, their services will move to another student.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Are there any more questions from the board? Mr. Singh?
Mr. Pagliucci, may I ask you, in general, I'm very supportive of the work. I think more my sort of line of question is to understand the contract a little bit better, and to actually ask in lieu of when does it make sense for us to continue to subcontract with the support services, and I can totally see the value. At what point does it make sense for us to even possibly look for these services to actually hire in-house? So in terms of the last agreement with ACES, how many billing hours did we end up actually using? Do we have some sort of breakdown in terms of the number of students served? What were sort of do they tend to be at the elementary school, the middle school, the high school? Any sort of color you could provide on that would be helpful.
No, Trustee Singh, great question. We are about ready to eclipse the first contract, which was for right at $49,000. We did not know at the time, how much would be required at the beginning of this year. We did know, and just in looking at programmatically and dealing with discipline and anticipating, a high impact coming back this year, we did know that this perhaps was the best methodology to use ABA-trained folks. And to your point, should we look in the future to going in-house? Absolutely, and I think that's where we went with our BCBA-trained psychologists who can oversee these aides. We didn't have time, though, to look at training classified staff, and I think that's something in the future that we should definitely consider. The ACES company, however, has been partnering with us and partnered with us prior to the pandemic. We actually began working with them, I want to say in December of 2019. And we had some incredible results then, but then March 13th happened, right? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, and can I just ask a little bit in terms of, obviously we had a much smaller contract, with them. You're suggesting less than even 1/4 the size that we're continuing. In terms of our distribution, how did we end up using them largely at the elementary school, the middle school?
Thank you. I apologize. I forgot to address that. We began primarily with our littles, with kinder through third. Okay. We've extended all the way up through the high school. We're seeing behavior across the district. The good news is that we are seeing some of our cases where we are literally moving supports, like Trustee Carrillo had addressed. Are the teachers really? We're seeing the cases move where students are being able to stay in the classroom.
And my last follow-up question, sir, would be. Specifically with this particular contract, at least in the smaller form that we initially had with ACES, does it tend to be the same behavioral intervention specialists, or are they also, I assume, contracting potentially with other school districts in the area? Do they have like a large group? Do the students oftentimes continue to engage with the same behavioral BIs, or is it just sort of whoever's on call that day?
No, we work with personnel that will remain with the student. That doesn't mean that it could be up to 2 personnel, right? But we try and keep the same staff so that they not only get to know the student and our staff and work underneath our psychologists, but they're also working with the family to address it at home.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the board?
I'm having a hard time hearing, so if this got covered, I want to apologize. But in your opinion, in terms of the services you're providing, is it matching the ratio of kids of need? In other words, do we have enough services for the kids that fall in this category that are in need of this help and/or services?
No, that's a terrific question. As I stated previously, and I don't think I addressed it, I think I touched on it. We didn't know how grand the issue would be in terms of behavior coming out of this pandemic. So when we came before you and asked in the beginning related to this contract, we went small. Do I think it's addressing? I'm definitely seeing an imprint. I'm definitely seeing the ability to move. And I'm not seeing and hearing from our staff, our bargaining units, I'm not seeing that we need to perhaps add, but I think it's a question that needs to continually be asked. We have to meet the needs of our kids right now and address the issues that are completely related to the pandemic and kids not only having learning loss, but learning routine and having a mental health, behavioral impact.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, do we have any calls holding from the public?
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes,
Yes.
Trustee Chan, Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion passes. Moving on to item 5, approve extending for maximum health care staff service agreement 21-22.
Yes,
School year.
again, trustees, the item before you is an extension to a contract that we began earlier this year. Again, related to this contract, we did not know the degree to which we would need certified nurse assistants. Since that time, it has given us the ability to open our COVID clinic. To this date, I just checked before we began the board meeting, we have served a total of 3,002 students and staff having the ability to get tested. This contract extension would allow us to continue for the duration of this school year with 3 certified nursing assistants that essentially staff our testing clinic that's located currently at the Teague Community Center. Questions?
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, opening it up to public comments.
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Having a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, calling for a roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes,
Yes.
Trustee Chan, Trustee Mailing, Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion passes. Moving on to item 6, hold public hearing and adopt resolution 21/22/22, authorizing lease purchase finance agreement for approved approved energy conservation service agreement. Mr. McLean.
Thank you, President Solis. So this is a return of the item from the last meeting where we introduced the financing agreement for the energy conservation service agreement that was approved for NG, which is the vendor that was approved back in October. And so we're bringing that back for approval tonight through a resolution. It does require a public hearing prior to approving the resolution, so we can hold that at this time.
Thank you. Opening the item for public hearing. And you can call in for comments from the public at 276-3150.
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Let's give it a few more seconds here.
30 seconds on the clock.
All right.
Thirty seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. We'll be closing the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve the item.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes,
Yes.
Trustee Chan, Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. The motion carries. Moving on to item 7, adopt resolution 22-24, ratify extension to support school safety and wellness. Mr. McLean?
Thank you, President Solis. So if you recall, over the time of the pandemic, we've had several items come back to the board for approval and ratification related to immediate needs for safety and wellness. And so this one relates, as did a previous one, to purchase of testing kits for student and staff, as we were just discussing, for the T Community Resource Center. And so we're asking the board to ratify the purchase of some of the kits that we have purchased over the last couple of months in the amount of $209,100, which were paid through the federal COVID relief funds. And we're asking that the board would approve this resolution authorizing those expenditures.
Thank you, sir. Opening it up to public comments.
Would you like me to put 30 seconds on the clock?
Yes, please.
Thirty seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Creel
Second.
and a second by Mr. Paul. Roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes.
Yes.
Trustee Chan, Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
President Solis.
Yes. Motion passes. Moving on to informational items. N1, highlights from 2021 Csba Annual Education Conference. Ms. Carrillo.
Thank you, President Solis. Last week, some of our board members, including myself, had the opportunity to attend the CSBA conference, which was held in San Diego from December 1st to the 4th. I did remember that correctly. And I wanted to provide an opportunity for all of our board members who did attend, who wish to share related to any sessions that they attended or their experience during the CSBA conference. Year after year, I know since I've been serving on the board for the past 3 years, we always talk about the fact that we never get to share what we learn with the rest of the board or our community. And so this is an opportunity for any member to provide any updates. If I may, I can begin with providing my updates, and if any other board member wishes to provide any updates, or if administration, we did have both our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Collegian, and our Acting Superintendent, Ms. Davis, and our Executive Secretary, Ms. Lopez, who also attended the conference. So three highlights from me. One of the sessions I attended was Beyond Headlines and Sound Bites, looking at equity from a People First lens. And the focus was really on the history and understanding where we come from, what is our history, what is our story, because then it helps us to recognize that we all have a lot in common. And one of the things that the speaker really highlighted was his background and his family history of coming from slavery and going through the generations of slavery and what they overcame, but also understanding where did that begin and what were some of the movers who changed that, and understanding that even though we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different colors of skin, we can still all get together and understand one another and really build relationships, and how important it is for us to work with our students and understand that maybe if they're throwing a fit or they're being disruptive in the classroom, there's something that is triggering that, and how can we help and support them. The second session I attended that I wanted to share is effective governance with an equity lens. And one of the things that they highlighted was really the role of the board in identifying and developing with the community an equity statement. We've started some of this work, but I still think that there's a lot that our district needs to do, but also focusing on the fact that our board has work to do and owns a responsibility to really make some of that change and to work collaboratively with our administration, with our teachers, with our staff, to really build environments and safe spaces for our students. And in correlation with that, one of the general sessions consisted of a panel of student board members, current and former, and I thought it was really enlightening to hear their perspectives. I know that I regularly ask, how does this impact students? What are students thinking about? How, especially when we're talking about dress code, what is their opinion? We get elected by the adults in this room in our community, and we're making decisions that both impact the adults at our district, but the majority of our decisions impact our students. So I would like to begin discussions about how our board starts soliciting directly and working with our students from every one of our schools to hear their ideas, their opinions, and how we can become better leaders and create better policies that are creating these spaces in which students feel that they have the ability to speak up, and that we are being more equitable in the distribution of our services and how we provide programs. So those were just some of the highlights that I wanted to share. A lot of the focus at the CSBA conference was having this conversation that sometimes is hard to have, and talking about equity and what that looks like and how we're implementing it. So if there's any other board member, if President Solis will allow me to solicit any feedback from anyone else who would like to speak at this time.
Any other comments?
Okay, come on, guys.
Mr.
I'm not the
Singh?
only one that's going to talk today.
You're a tough act to follow.
Mr. Chen?
So thank you, President Solis, for giving me an opportunity to share. I actually went to a couple of great sessions that really left an impression on me, some that I'm still kind of thinking through. One, I guess in some ways the segue first off, Trustee Carrillo's thoughts was, I did go to one in terms of, I don't want to say what are the pros and cons, but it was really looking at what is the power, what is the value, and what are thoughts on having a student board member. Of course, many of us were in the large plenary session where a number of student board members very articulately and very candidly share their opinion. I did get to go to a smaller session with a number of actually some of those same folks that were sharing. So if there's if that's something that we're interested in 2022, I'd love to kind of see where our board thinks, if that's a direction that we'd at least like to consider and have greater conversations about. Another one that really sort of had a lasting impression on me was it was on a number of different things, but it was actually something as mundane as like setting an agenda. And I thought it was going to be sort of broad things about goals and mission statements, but it was actually what is the power of what our agenda looks like. And there were some sort of creative thoughts in terms of how one actually creates an agenda that lends itself to more discussion about students, schools, achievement, equity, and different things that I know all of us value. And certain agendas lend themselves much more to the bureaucratic needs that we also have to make sure we fulfill. And so hopefully in school board meetings future, I can kind of share those or have conversations with Superintendent Davis, with President Solis, and see if some of those suggestions are things that we'd like to incorporate in the future. Thank you.
Thank you both. For me, kind of touching bases on what we've already both spoke about, I think it's critical and important that we put on the agenda on a bi-weekly, or I'm sorry, on a monthly basis, what's important to us. If academic outcomes are important to us, it should be on the agenda every time and to be discussed. Even if there's nothing to be discussed, it's something that we're constantly focusing on, and staff is constantly focusing on. It's not something that's kind of hidden, or it's something that's always exposed, and we're always talking about it, and we're always moving forward. And another one, and no offense to our acting superintendent, but the reality that they kind of analyze as an annual review for a superintendent is probably not enough. It should be a quarterly review. And therefore, it should be something that we're discussing more often. We're changing gears. We're constantly communicating with the CEO of our school, and the expectations are set. Realistic expectations are set. Goals are set. Things that we can constantly focus on to achieve, to improve student outcomes, CT, clean, safe, green schools, things that are important to us as school board members. And I learned that delivery, in terms of how we might be able to convey our message, sometimes could be taken in a very negative content based on what we might say, with good intent, but a bad outcome. And so working on that as an individual and as a board member to be a better communicator in terms of choosing the words, being more precise about words, being a little bit more clear about words. And then the other big one was, of course, the student and student equity. So I learned a lot. I don't know, I feel like whatever seminar I attended kind of spoke to me at the kind of the stage that I was in, or I'm at, in terms of my tenureship with the board. And I got a lot out of it, and I was very grateful that I went, and we took the time out, and grateful to the school district for being able to allow us the privilege to attend this. Thank you.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes. One of the classes that I attended, it was out of Bakersfield, and they had a program that was called Pride. And what they did was took students with lower test scores and was able to work with that kid and they had all these different programs to work with the kids, different things. They took them on field trips to build up their self-esteem, to help their test scores go up. And they started with very small, and they went larger. And they work with the 3rd through 8th graders. I understand we have the program here for high school, so I would like to see it for our younger kids, to bring them out, to do things with them. And I have also have a little brochure here I can give you. And proud meant powerful, resilient, outstanding, unique, and determined. And they just work with these kids in different ways, and I think they had a wonderful program there. So I'd like to see something here. Thank you.
President Solis, if I may make one last comment that I ignored and I think is very important. In addition to just attending these sessions, I always find it extremely beneficial just to have the opportunity to break bread with my colleagues, those who attended, and the opportunity to learn more about each other, more than just what our political views may be, or why it is that we're voting on certain items a certain way. Obviously, that is only those discussions only occur in compliance with the Brown Act and during these board meetings. But just being able to understand other individuals' backgrounds, again, going to one of the first sessions, it's just so important to know more about one another, that better help us work together and understand why it is that someone may respond in a certain way, and why it is that I may be taking it aggressively or interpreting it in a different manner. So I really appreciate the opportunity and thank all of my fellow trustees and our administration for allowing us the opportunity to also spend some time together with one another, and our community for allowing us to use your tax dollars for those purposes. So thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Please let the record show at 8:44, Mr. Paul had to leave. Moving on to item 2, receive update timeline for TNTP audit. Ms. Davis?
Thank you, President Solis. A few meetings ago, Trustee Cervantes, you reminded us that it was due time for a status update on our curriculum audit, and as you have given us permission to engage in a study of our progress and really look at our overall picture of achievement. Just as a reminder, there are 3 parts to this study. One is to look at our longitudinal data. One is to go into classrooms and look at the observations of students in their work, what type of work the students are engaged in and doing, and then also to have some focus group sessions in discussion with teachers and students at schools to collect that data and really look at where are we succeeding and where might our blinders be on, so we can make sure we're serving our students in need and we're accelerating their learning, and especially in a time like this. Originally, the timeline, and you see it attached, our goal was that we would be coming to you at this time with conclusions that were drawn from that audit. However, we did make the decision at the start of October to delay when the classroom observations would occur. They were intended to occur October 18th to 22nd. That was right around the time that we were finally launching our testing center and adjusting to new rules for quarantine and isolation. In conversation with the individuals that will conduct the audit, there was an overwhelming desire to pause, let our teachers and students get situated in the programs, and then go into classrooms. While they aim to minimize disruption, there is a disruption in the work, and so those have been rescheduled to January 31st through February 11th. Our final report, instead of in December, is intended to be in March. We are taking a look at any of the information that they've provided us thus far in terms of just the numbers, and are eager to see it all pulled together. It is our desire, while we have specific goals for re-engagement this school year and specific activities that we think are critical for our students that are in place, we are very open to what this information will bring, so we can adjust accordingly and make sure our plans moving forward take into account what we can learn from this process. So looking forward to bringing it back to you in March, and happy to answer any questions now at this time. If there are some, otherwise, it's information at this point.
Mr. Cervantes, you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Board Chair. I love the surveying of the teachers and the students, but is there an element, I'm not reading it, but I'm just curious, is there an element to survey parents?
We have given them our parent survey data that we use from Panorama. There is a survey, but I'm going to have to check. I don't believe there's any focus group for them in that setting. If that's important to us that we want to do, we can certainly talk to them about meeting with a group like our DAC, a group that represents each of our campuses. But at this time, it's teacher and student focus.
Maybe at a future time, I would really be curious to see what a survey from parents would also, how it would be able to be interjected into a report like this.
Okay, I'll
Yeah, I
follow
think
up with
it's
that.
critical where they feel like there's a shortfall or where they feel like we can improve. And so all collective bodies, teachers, students, and parents if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Creel?
Acting Superintendent Davis, can you clarify, I understand Trustee Cervantes' point, and I agree 100%, we need to obtain feedback from our parents, but I'm just curious, the surveys, are we obtaining surveys as part of this audit, or is it more related to the observation and identifying where we need to improve? If that makes sense, and it's more based on...
So it's a triangulated report, and so one point is the observation in the classroom and a look at student work samples of what students are doing. That will certainly carry over in some regard because some of the teachers in the room or students in the room may have been in those very classrooms, and so there may be a comparison or a connection in there. What they're bringing up is access to opportunity, to engagement, to belonging, connectedness, interaction with materials. To the question of Trustee Cervantes, there could also be a perspective from parents about access to materials and engagement. Right now, we collect it in what's called a panorama survey. We collect some of that information, but I'll take that question back to them, and they'll tell me whether or not it would be appropriate to put into this, or we might gather that somewhere else.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to understand and have a better clarification whether we were conducting surveys of those subgroups as well. Thanks.
Moving on to item 3, receive information regarding revised board policy. Ms. Davis?
Thank you. In front of you this evening, there are 5 board policies for your review that we do request return to the January 11th meeting for action. The 5 board policies, 1 is new and all are updated in response to law changes. In very brief, the summary of changes is attached, but I will share with you the new policy is the first one labeled COVID Mitigation, Board Policy 0470. It really addresses our new independent study program. Now that we have had to close schools, lots of the legislation needed to be modified and changed so that our policies addressed when school closures occur, what do we adhere to for our community. And you see that throughout the emergency schedules, the staff development, the special education identification and success teams is all around those laws that changed for AB 86 and AB 130. It's great for me to report to you that we already have these items in place, so this policy is catching up to our practice. I do request that these return to the next meeting for action.
Unless I hear otherwise, we'll put it on the action item. Okay. All righty. Staff, please be advised if we have any call-in comments, bring it to my attention for these items.
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Item 5, receive information regarding 2022-23 annual renewal of participation in the Super Co-op JPA. Mr. McLean?
President Solis.
Oh, I just skipped one, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient with me today. Item number 4 is where we're at. Receive information on obsolete textbooks and materials. Mr. Hosman.
Thank you, President Solis, Trustees, Acting Superintendent Davis. The attached list of materials is submitted as obsolete. The materials have been replaced by new adoptions or are no longer in use by the district. Obsolete materials will be offered to the public prior to disposal. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Go ahead.
And these are offered for free to the public, right? We don't charge anything.
They are. Generally, they're offered to teachers first and then the public for free.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from public comments?
We have no comments by phone at this time.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to item 5, receive information regarding 2022-23 annual renewal of participation in the Super Co-op JPA. Mr. McLean.
Sorry, President Solis, if I can go back to item number 4. Is that coming back? Can we have that come back under consent?
Yes.
Thank you. Apologize for the interruption.
No problem. Mr. McLean, you're on. Item 5.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we've been a longtime member of the Super Co-op, and Alyssa Engel, who is our Director of Nutrition Services, serves on that board. So they require an annual participation renewal to be approved by the board. And so the Super Co-op, what that is about is it allows us greater purchasing power of our USDA commodities. So we buy food items from these co-op vendors at good pricing, as well as we look to use local vendors when we can, and always trying to get the best bang for our buck. So tonight we're just recommending this item be placed on the next agenda on January 11th for action or consent, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and place this on consent.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, receive information regarding change order number 20 for Justin Garza High School. Mr. McLean / Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. This is the next change order coming forward for $15,767 on the Justin Garza High School. We are to date at change orders of 2.04% of the total project, which leaves a balance of about $3 million in our contingency fund. We are recommending this item be placed on the January 11th board agenda for action, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, is there any objections having it placed on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, I'll be placing it on consent. Moving on to item O, advanced planning. Ms. Davis, do you have anything for this?
And I will remind you as the date gets closer as well, but upon approval tonight of the reserve dates for next year in January, we will have a work session, and the dates are attached in the advanced planning for you. We'll also send a reminder. So.
All righty, so we can move on to item P, additional information and closing comments. Ms. Creel.
Thank you, President Solis. Congratulations on your appointment as board president. If there's anything that I can assist you with or the executive team as you prepare for future meetings, please do not hesitate to let me know.
Thank you. I'll keep you on speed dial.
Board Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to thank ex-President Carrillo for the last 2 years. I think she has been exceptional. She's been extremely dedicated. I was really under the impression that you needed a break, but with all that being said, I think Mr. Solis will do a great job, especially with your support. But again, I can't thank you enough. I've said this before, I don't think we always realize the amount of work that the president takes on, besides the traditional duties of a board member. And again, I think you were exceptional. And I think the board and the public and the community was very blessed to have you. And I'm sure you'll circulate back into that position sometime in the near future. But with all that being said, thank you very, very much for your leadership. We're very grateful.
Thank you for your kind comments. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Ms. Davis, do you have any comments? No? All righty. Our next meeting, our next regular scheduled meeting will be January the 11th, 6 o'clock, same location. We will not be moving into closed session. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Cervantes, Trustee Chan, Trustee Mailing,
Yes.
Trustee Paul, no, apologize, he's left, President Solis.
Yes. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I do have a form that requires all of your signatures.